You are listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. Thank you for downloading and subscribing. Coming to you virtually live from high atop the historic Raleigh building in beautiful downtown Raleigh. The NCF&B takes the listener behind the scenes to tell the stories of the people that contribute to the creation of the food and beverage community of North Carolina. And now, the misfits in the dish pit, the faces of the front. They are Max Trujillo and Matthew Weiss.
Hello, and thank you for listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. I am your co-host, Max Trujillo.
And I am your co-host, Matthew Weiss. And today we head out to Asheville, right on Wall Street. That's right, Wall Street in Nashville. And we have the owner of Early Girl Eatery, the famed Early Girl Eatery, with us today. And we welcome in Jesson Gil, or for those of you that are Spanish speakers, Jesson Gil. Welcome, sir.
Hey. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. You were just saying before we got on the mics that it's you may get a little snow right now, which is interesting. Mm-hmm. It's cold as heck right now.
It's good skiing weather. I just saw the woman who does our social media. She's out in Salt Lake City, Utah, skiing.
The Kraken?
Yeah. You didn't see that? And
I
said I'm very jealous of her because it feels like skiing weather right now if it's this cold.
I'd love to be there right now.
The only thing I've seen about Utah is that Housewives show, because they're in Utah right now.
Yes. I don't normally keep up with the housewives of certain cities, but I will ask you for notes off mic later on. Sounds like you're way into that, so that's cool.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
It just happened to be on while you were
passing by. In the background. I'm only 4 seasons.
It's my wife that watches it. You know.
I might peek in.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine.
I'm curious. Yeah, Kelsey Grammer's wife. No big deal. Everybody knows. Okay. All right. Let's talk breakfast. It's early right now, and you are Early Girl Eatery. You, from what I gather, now Matt and I don't believe we've ever been to Early Girl. I haven't, Matt.
I have not.
Okay.
No.
So we know nothing, which is sometimes a better thing for the purposes of a conversation about, who you are and what you do. The few things that we do know is that you didn't create Early Girl Eatery, but you did take it over, and you've been able to run 3 successful locations in Asheville, very beloved businesses. So maybe we'll just start right there with you talking about the acquisition, the purchase, and the transition of Early Girl Eatery.
So as a funny sort of thing, there's this business broker that I work with. So when we moved from Texas to Asheville, I didn't know anything. So, I just Googled, businesses for sale. These guys show up, I meet with them. And I bought another restaurant before when I first moved here. So I had that for about 3 years, and then I sold it. Well, in there, the one guy, Brian, calls me up one day, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to go get together for coffee?" And I was like, yeah, sure. So I'm talking to my wife, and she's like, "Do not meet that guy. He's going to try to sell you something." And I was like, nah. He just wants to reconnect. It's going to be okay. So we go down to this coffee shop, and we're just kind of hanging out. And he's like, "Hey, Early Girl's for sale." And I was like, "What?" I was like,
"You knew this the whole time. You knew what you wanted."
You're in your own head thinking, yeah, maybe he might want to sell me something, and I might want to buy something.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah.
Hey, I was like, "Yeah, I'm totally interested. How much is it?" He's like, "Well, it's actually 2 restaurants for sale. It's Early Girl and King Daddy's." And, he gave me the price, and I was like, I'm in a non-compete from the businesses I had in Texas, so I can't do a chicken business, so I can't buy King Daddy's. I was like, "But how much is Early Girl? Would they sell it by itself?" And he was like, "I don't see why they wouldn't." So he basically, the total price for the 2, he just cut in half. And he said, "Here's what it's going to cost." So we negotiated a little bit, and we talked. And, buying Early Girl was a really pretty funny thing, because I had a P&L in an Excel spreadsheet. And in there, for the entire year, the restaurant made $11,000. That was the profit.
Before you took it over, or their
P&L,
the one that you received from them?
Yep.
Okay.
$11K on a $1.6 million.
That does sound like a bad investment, but there are a lot of people that are in the restaurant industry that would go, "Oh, you mean you made money?"
Yeah, you netted money and paid people.
I mean, seriously, like
Maybe even paid
sometimes
yourself.
just keeping the lights on and being in the black, even just a few pennies, is almost a success. But, but to each his own. Yeah, I know that for you as a business owner, you're like, yeah, that's cool. I got to pay the general manager and all that stuff. But what would I get? $11,000. That juice ain't worth the squeeze for a business. So I get that. Yeah. If you're the only person and you're running it, you're paying yourself to run it. Yeah. Maybe that's okay. But.
Well, and they had people working. They had, like a de facto sort of GM working. And when I looked at it, and of course, Christina and I mean, we're partners in what we do. And so, and I'll be judged as a bad husband right now. So I looked at it, and I was thankful it was in an Excel spreadsheet. And so I added a 0 to that profit number. So that
to show your wife.
To show my wife.
Yeah.
So that it was $110,000. And I was like, hey, baby, check this out.
Yeah.
There's this restaurant for sale and look at what it's making.
Nice. Cooking the books, pardon the pun.
Yeah.
I did a little bit.
Yeah.
Just because I had a lot of faith. I looked at the P&L and I was like, I know I can improve this. I know it's going to be a great business. It has a great reputation. The 17 years it's already been here, it is a good business. It just needs tightening up. That's all it needs. So, I made an offer and we negotiated it out and we bought the restaurant. And start working it. And
hey, Jesson, I want to jump in right there because I think that a lot of people who are in this state and why we have a show that's so successful is because a lot of people are entrepreneurs. And I can just imagine they're wondering the same thing that I am right now, saying, well, what are those things that you saw that you were able to see on that spreadsheet that just said, well, if I just tighten up here and I tighten up there, we can make that profit greater. Can you share specifically what some of those things were?
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, you make all your money in food and labor. I mean, that's really the reality of it, right? So the first thing that I noticed, the COGS weren't terrible. They were 32 to 34%. Labor, though, was 49% of the P&L.
Which is always the biggest struggle. Yeah. You don't necessarily make your money in labor. You're saying you
save your money.
It's where you either lose or save your money. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And so when I looked at those two numbers, I've been using Hot Schedules for about 13 years, and it's just an online scheduling system. Mm-hmm. And I found that by using it, it really does help you become more efficient. And so I was like, okay, well, I already know that this system, because I've used it for so long, is going to help me find some inefficiencies. That's one thing. When I sort of think of something else, I guess like overarching in the whole thing, it's an investment in technology, because we also use Aloha, and this isn't a plug for Aloha or Hot Schedules, okay, by the way. So and there's plenty of people that have a lot to say about either of those companies.
And if those companies do want to sponsor our podcast, we will be open to listening.
Yeah, Aloha.
Aloha.
With Aloha, it's a high-end system. It has the bells and whistles. So the reports that we were able to pull and tie that together with Hot Schedules, I mean, there was things like, 2 to 3 in the afternoon, we were running 1,200% labor.
Yeah,
it's a shift change. Yeah, it's not good. It's a shift change. Well, all those things started tying into Hot Schedules, right? Because they communicate, they're synced together. So, when you're doing a schedule, you have these graphs and these bars and all these things, and you can be like, in the afternoon, I'm doing this, and I'm more efficient, if I have just 3 people instead of 20 people on the shift. And so we just started doing things like that. And then we started running a product mix. So we run a product mix. If not every day, it's every other day that we're looking at a product mix for the restaurant.
Yeah.
And that seems pretty excessive. What we're trying to do is recognize that there's the things that I really like in food. So I love Mexican food. I'm a Mexican kid. I grew up in El Paso. I love to eat Mexican food. That's just my thing.
Yeah.
It's not everybody's thing. And so when I like something, sometimes I like things a little bit spicier. I love a lot of cheese. That's not every person's thing. So when we look at the product mix, we start making decisions like, okay, what are people buying? So, we've had plenty of dogs on the menu that, have great food costs. Some of them had bad food costs. So we've been able to adjust our food by running a product mix and then changing the menu to see what sells and what has a great cost of goods.
It seems so simple and common sense thinking, but it makes so much sense. And I think also, like, it's a smart way to look at your business, and it doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice craft to do so.
Right.
But what you're saying right there, Jesson, is like sometimes pride gets in the way of your menu and your menu scope because you might really like the huevos rancheros or something that's on the menu, and you find out like in a week you've sold 7 units of it, whereas like everything else you've sold in the hundreds, and you're like, yeah, but still I like it. It's like, yeah, it's taking up real estate on your menu though, and prep in your kitchen and time and labor just to
And
make
that food going bad also.
that thing that you don't want to. But I would argue that probably huevos and trails probably sell very well because it's a delicious dish. But for the sake of argument, but you have to have less ego and pride in those things. Don't eliminate everything that's kind of heady and avant-garde. You just have to have a decent amount of selection because you have to, because there are other Maxes in the world and other Jessons in the world, definitely a couple of Matt Weisses in the world. So like you got to like entertain everybody to an extent, but you can't have too much pride in your menu mix, which is important.
I would just argue one thing, that there are many Matt Weisses in the world. I mean, I think they broke the mold.
There's only one. Yeah.
As a funny thing, we have found that we're more creative because of it.
Sure.
Not less. Because what we're finding is that we're doing these things. We put out a dish and it doesn't resonate. And then we have this come to Jesus moment that we're like, man, people just don't like this dish. Let's make another dish.
Yeah.
And we got to create.
Yeah.
And we do something again. And that didn't work. Or maybe it does work. And we're like, let's do it again. And so it gives us a chance to keep on creating and really testing things out. So, I mean, we do specials every 2 weeks. I mean, we're running, I don't know, maybe close to 1,000 recipes a year.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy.
We used to do specials every day, if you could imagine. And it was like, there's just no way to be that creative.
That's a little like creative fatigue after a while. You're almost just like, I don't know, just throw some eggs into whatever. I don't know. What do we got left? Yeah. But so where you said you've been in the business for a little while. Tell us a little bit about you. You're coming from El Paso, from Texas, but you had a food history back there. Just kind of walk us a little bit. Like, why do we care what you say about food? What makes you so special?
Well, I think in 32 years, I think the first thing is every time I hear somebody say they're a foodie, I think, shit, I have 32 years of experience, and I would never flatter myself to say I'm a foodie. So it always makes me giggle. I roll my eyes when someone's like, I'm a foodie. And I'm like, oh, really? Okay. I was like, I got to hear what you're going to say next, because this is going to...
I had that exact experience this morning. I was listening to a podcast with my son, who's 4, and somebody said, oh, and I'm a foodie. So of course I knew that. And I just laughed out loud. And he's like, why are you laughing, Dad? And I had to explain that, but it doesn't quite translate to a 4-year-old. But I completely
enjoy
get
food. It's like, well, yeah. Who doesn't
enjoy food?
Yeah. Although we remember Lawrence, our bartender we used to work with together at Cafe Del Rey, he was like a previously chubby guy that then worked out like crazy to be a lean guy. And he said, I had to eliminate my relationship with food because I loved food so much. And that's why I became a gluttonous pig and I got overweight. He's like, so now I just look at food as fuel, and I have no want or desire for food. I find my wants and desires in other things in life, which sounds good on paper, but I don't know.
I would argue that you could still appreciate the fuel. You're still going to have preferences in the fuel.
Yeah, be creative. But okay, so you've had a little history of working in restaurants.
It should be noted that you are a product of McDonald's. I mean, you look at things probably in somewhat of in a good way, business analytically, from a corporate structure that I have to imagine McDonald's gave you that. And I guess you worked your way up through there, or was it just, what was your career getting back to it?
I worked at McDonald's for 17 years.
Okay.
And I went to college, and I thought I wanted to be a doctor. I got a degree in biology, and I hit my senior year, and I said, you know what, I just don't think I want to do that, and I don't know what I want to do. So I was like, I worked at McDonald's for years, for the whole time. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go hang out at McDonald's and figure myself out. I was a cashier. I worked in the kitchen. I was a manager. I ended up being a supervisor. I was a field consultant for them. Then I always looked at my dad and the business that he owned, and I always thought to myself, I would love to own my own business. And so, through the time that I was with McDonald's, I held out that I was going to be a business owner. McDonald's is a massive company and they have tremendous training. So I was like, why not get paid and let them train me? So at about 17 years, I actually went on and got a master's, and I said, you know what, I'm 33 years old and it's time to do something different. They actually offered me a vice president job at the exact same time that I was ready to quit It was like the Holy Grail. At the same point, I had applied for Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers. So they were looking for a supervisor, and they called me up and they were like, hey, would you like to own your own restaurant? I was like, man, I'd love to own my own restaurant. And they're like, well, we have this opportunity in the Woodlands. It's, right near your house. We have a restaurant that's struggling, and if you can turn it around, we'll make a special deal with you. And I had, wanted to always own my own restaurant and be my own guy. So I literally was given an offer to be a vice president at McDonald's. And I put my notice in at the same time.
Wow.
Which was freaking crazy. And people were like, what the hell are you doing?
Right.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting sort of thing that I applied for a supervisor, but ended up working for them as a general manager. So my deal with them was be general manager for however long it takes. And if you can turn the restaurant around, we're going to sell you the restaurant at a discount. So I don't know if y'all are familiar with Raising Cane's. They just sell chicken fingers.
I'm not, but are they? This is a big chain, I guess, out there in Texas, or?
Oh my God, they're everywhere. They're huge. I think they're $1 billion or $1.5 billion in sales or something now.
Oh wow, okay.
And that was the other thing too. When I started with them, there was only 42 restaurants. Now there are probably 500 or 600, 700 restaurants. I don't even know now. And so I really like the idea of getting in on the ground floor of something. And my corporate life, I was like, oh, there's going to be stock options, and it's going to be this great thing. So within 2 years, I was able to turn a profit and then ask them for the opportunity to go ahead and exercise, my chance to buy the restaurant, except that I was broke, so my entire life has, been paycheck to paycheck. So I was like, hey, do you have a preferred bank that you'd like to work with that could help me out? Because I'm still broke. It's been 2 years and I'm still broke. And they're like, well, you don't need to get a loan. And I was like, well, I'm not rich. So there's no way for me to buy this restaurant without a loan. And they're like, do you understand your deal with us? And I was like, I'm real sure I understand it. Well, I didn't get a written contract with them. So my meetings and everything were just verbal stuff. And so it was buy the restaurant at a discount. They're like, well, we'll call you back in a couple of weeks. We need to talk to the founder, Todd. So they called me a couple of weeks later, and they're like, hey, this is Ian. I was like, hey, yeah, this is Jesson. He's like, hey, we talked to Todd. Todd really loves everything you've done with the restaurant there. You really helped us out. The restaurant there was $1 million in the hole. You've turned it around. We're unbelievably excited. Todd wants to give you the restaurant for free.
Wow.
Legit. He gave me the restaurant for free. Yeah. He's like, well, they're like, whoa. You need to put money in the safe. You need to pay for your attorney and the LLC and all that kind of stuff, and buy inventory. So my entire 401k was $27,000. So I cashed in my 401k, and it's like God was watching out for me because all my expenses were right at $27,000.
Wow.
So the first day that I opened up, I think I had I don't even remember. I think I had $500 in the bank or something.
That's awesome, though.
Freaking crazy.
Yeah.
Freaking crazy. So, things went really, really well. And, I did that for, a couple of years. Then I opened up another restaurant, which was not free with them. I did that for a decade. You go through the life of being a corporate person and the structure and doing inspections. And I was that guy to going to the other side where you're worried about payroll and you're worried about food cost. And, I think for myself, I was pretty fortunate because I ended up in a corporate environment where it was super structured. So I had to do what they wanted to do. And it really set me up, I think, to ease into restaurant ownership.
Yeah.
But after a decade, I recognized that I was like that guy in high school who sits on the couch drinking beer and eating Doritos, and everyone's out going to college and doing all these great things. I hadn't gone anywhere. I hadn't done anything. I was a small business owner, and really Cane's had gotten to be this big corporation. Really, I was dragging them down. I was bad for the business because I just didn't want to innovate, and I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to hang out in my 2 restaurants. And so I decided to sell, and they bought me out. And so I was like, okay, what the hell am I going to do now? And I thought I was going to retire. And so where I started at McDonald's, because I just didn't know what the hell I wanted to do, at the end of it, when I sold, I was like, I could do anything I felt like. And there's nothing else I wanted to do but be in restaurant. That's it. I was like, this is what I want to do.
And you chose Asheville.
Yeah.
Because you had been there and visited or heard, or what was the impetus for Asheville?
Because my wife and I mean, we're a little bit older, so we had been talking about retiring. And so we just Googled places to retire, and we were going to do a vacation house here. And so we were, and that's actually kind of what pushed us over, because we came for a visit, and my wife and I were like, what are we doing? You know, I mean, we love coming here. We've been coming here for 4 years. You know, why not live where you like to vacation? So she's like, we should just sell everything. And I'm super impulsive, I guess, because the next day we're back in Texas. I'm walking into Target, and I'm on my phone. I send this message to the franchisor, and I'm like, hey, I'd like to sell my 2 restaurants. So that's basically November, and then by May I was out of the business.
That's fast moving. You know, I will say when Felicia and I were in Hawaii and we're having the best time, and of course I think like anyone that goes to like a cool destination place, there is a quick moment, if not even a long moment in your time, where you just look at your mate and you're like, we could live here. We could live here. You know, you have that, you romanticize about it. But my response to her was, yeah, but once you start taking the trash out in, you know, paradise, it's just like anywhere else you live.
Inspirational tip of the day from Max Trujillo.
So listen, Max, it's a funny thing. We've been here almost 4 years, and we were like, well, we're going to go hiking. We're going to be in the best shape of our lives. We're going to have like these hot bodies. It's going to be just this amazing thing. And I've gone hiking twice.
Yeah.
I think I'm 40 pounds over when I first moved here. I mean, I'm busy on the grind. That's I'm eating food and just working.
And the food is awesome there. So, you know, this is actually a great tale of a folk of North Carolina. And that reminds me, Max, of our great friends at the Folks Foundation.
That's right. The Folks Foundation, who are champions of all good things crafted in North Carolina, and the folks that make them, are a 501c3 nonprofit who have ongoing grants and a publication, the Folks Journal, as well as their general store and their bar called Tonic out there in New Bern. They're really a fascinating group of people. You can check out what they discuss in their journal, both online or quarterly as it is released. But you can get all the information at folksfoundation.org. And be sure to consider a small donation to help support local North Carolina makers. That's Folks Foundation, and go to folksfoundation.org.
It's interesting, Max, you used the word community upheaval, because let's dive in there, because recently there has been some community upheaval. And I think this is a really important subject, especially a hot button issue that probably a lot of restaurateurs are dealing with right now. But it has been publicly noted that you guys had a positive COVID case amongst one of your employees, and then there was a huge community upheaval. Well, I don't know about how huge, but seemingly that you guys should have shut down. So walk us through what happened and your decision process through that.
Well, I mean, so I guess the first thing was we had already had a positive COVID case probably 2 months ago. And it was the first time that we had anybody come back positive. And, you know, there's no handbook. There's, right. You know, so you know, 2 months ago, we get notified. And we're like, well, okay, well, what the hell do we do? What does the government say? So we're Googling. We're looking at all these things. I call the health department. I leave them a message. It takes them about 5 hours to get back to me. And funny thing is, when I hit the 5 hours, I had already basically decided that we were going to close the restaurant down, because I was like, I don't know what to do. This just feels like the right thing to do. And the health department was like, you don't have to close down. We're not telling you have to stay open. We're not telling you have to. And I was like, okay, we're not going to tell you how to run your business. I was like, you're the friggin' health department. You kind of do that all the time, don't you?
In this situation, I almost wouldn't mind a little authority. But as Matt and I were discussing before, it's like, if you do have a positive COVID case, it is not the rule, and the CDC, we were checking through it everywhere. If you have a positive case, the rule is that you're not shut down. It's just, for a couple reasons, I assume that if the government says you have to be shut down, well, then the government probably has to be liable to pay all of your unemployment during that time, which has not been has not come very easily to many restaurateurs, as we all know. So that's kind of why they're not telling you to shut down. And so they leave it up to you, which in a way, I'm kind of okay with the freedom of that, like let you make your own decisions. You followed the CDC guidelines as far as what you're supposed to do when someone has a positive. Walk us through a little bit of that.
So from the first one that happened to us, okay, we will go through that. We're closed for 2.5 days. We reopen, and we learned a couple of things. Okay, so we go through, and then this situation comes up. And it's interesting. So really the storm happened because so sometime in the afternoon, and I don't have a time, there's a group text, like in all restaurants, the front of the house or the back of the house. So they're texting whatever they text about whatever they text. In this situation, in the afternoon, person, gets a result that they're positive with COVID, sends a text message to everybody in the restaurant, hey, I tested positive for COVID. Awesome. I'm not on that text message. Okay.
Yeah.
So the first person that is notified is every person on staff. Okay. All right. And then, the restaurant is open and we're doing business like normal. Well, then a text message comes to a shift manager at the restaurant. Shift manager doesn't know what to do. They're not trained in it, had never experienced it. And they're like, well, I don't know what to do. Okay, let me reach out to the supervisor. Reaches out to the supervisor. Supervisor sends me a text message. Says, hey, give me a call. And this is the honest to God truth. And it's almost embarrassing to say out loud. I was asleep. So I'm at home. It's the afternoon. I had a nap. And I got up. And there's a text message from the supervisor. And I was like, holy crap. What's going on? So I call her up. She's like, hey, we have one of our employees tested positive. What do you want to do? And I was like, hey, give me a second to think about this. We went through it one time. We did some good things, some things I think we could have done differently. Give me a moment. Let me talk to my wife and we'll work on it. Hold on. So we start writing stuff, right? And every word feels like you have to weigh it. So is the really a the, or is it a capital the, or a lowercase the, or a what is the?
Yeah.
And then the next word is COVID. Is it a capital? And so we're trying to put a statement out to people, just like, okay, here, let's go and tell everybody, here's what we're going to do. Let's make a statement to the customers. So we're going through this process. So the first case that we had took us about 4 hours to make a decision. And then at hour 5, the health department had called us. So it takes a long time to do this. So this time around, because we'd already gone through it, we're like, well, if we call the health department, they're not going to give us any advice. Okay, what are we going to do here? Okay. Well, first thing is we think that there's a shutdown that's going to happen. That's just what we think. I talked to a lot of restaurant people. We're afraid. We don't know what's going to happen. Is it going to happen Christmas Eve? Is it happening tomorrow? Is it happening January 8th? We don't know, but we're afraid. And so we're like, okay, that's happening. It's 2 weeks before Christmas. And I thought, I feel like an asshole because these people aren't going to make money. Our servers work on tips. And I'm like, okay, there's a shutdown that's going to happen. It's 2 weeks before Christmas. I was like, okay, so not everybody was in. We have a lot of people. There's about 40 people that work at this restaurant, and not everybody worked with this employee. So I was like, okay, let's have everybody who's come in contact with him go ahead and get a test, and of course they all hang out, and who knows who's together. So those people can go ahead and make a judgment for themselves too. If they were with that person outside of work, we want you to go ahead and get a test. So I send a message on hot schedules to everybody saying, hey, if you feel like you've been exposed to COVID, you should go ahead and get a test. Talk to the general manager, and we decide to open the next day. In that time frame, one of the people from the text messages goes on a private Facebook and posts that we're hiding things.
Yeah.
Never mind that I had been asleep. And we were trying to figure something out. And so this person posts, well, I may get fired for this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. They're not doing anything. But we had literally just learned about it maybe 2 hours before.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's a lot of particulars that you can get into about decisions you should have made, could have made, whatever it is. The fact of the matter is you went through, once you found out, you cleaned the place. That person obviously stayed home. You had everybody get tested and go from there. It is a huge challenge. And if you look at some of these negative Yelp reviews that people put on there, the one that like really makes me feel upset as a restaurateur in general is that they don't care about their employees. It's like, you don't know where their care is, and to project that you can get into somebody's mind as to where their care is. Yeah, thinking about being open in general in this time right now, it puts out an interesting message in general. There are a lot of people that just don't want any restaurants to be open because of safety, because of spreading the virus. But restaurants can't just survive. Like, no one's getting free money to just be closed and stay home. And so you do have 80 employees that need to make that money. And chances are there are many businesses like yours that there's going to be a situation like what you had happen. Somebody's going to get COVID. And again, the way you found out about it wasn't like the employee just went and said, let me go straight to the boss and say, hey, this is what's happening. Instead, no, it's like, oh man, I got to tell my coworker because maybe I can just get them to cover my shift or whatever. They think, most employees kind of think small about that stuff and it's not really a big deal or whatever, but it is a big deal. So, we do have a decent platform here for people that are, whether they're servers, bartenders, owners, or just patrons of restaurants. Like, for one, go straight to the source. Go straight to the boss. Let the boss make the decisions. It's their business. That should just be the first thing. But two, you don't have to shut down because someone gets it. And for many reasons, like you just explained, it's near Christmas time, or hey, it could just be in the middle of the summer, but everybody has bills to pay and they have kids that are going to school and food on the table. We don't have to explain why people need to make money. That's the whole point of the job. These are decisions that we all have to make. And if the government is not going to say you have to be shut down and we'll cover you, then you got to make that decision for yourself. But to think that maybe you weren't being forthright or so is or uncaring, it just kind of seems small-minded. And it makes me feel a little sad because I read you shut down Early Girl Eatery today. You're not open today. You put a post out on Instagram. And so whenever somebody hears this might not be timely, but just in the moment that we are speaking to Jesson, you had shut down, you put an update up there. And the one part that really strikes me is you're like, for the last 2 days, we've been full of attacks. And even for the strongest of people, it's been hard. Been hateful messages saying they wish to do harm to my family, that we should move away, we should close our business, and which would unemploy 80 people that work for us. So people got to think a little bit more about what they're saying and just make all those decisions from their keyboard. It just feels very harmful and hurtful to an entire business in general. So this is just me on my soapbox, but you do all the things you're supposed to do. You check temperatures, you wear a mask, you keep socially distant tables, you have sanitizer available everywhere. You make sure that when if somebody was around a bunch of people that potentially had the COVID virus, that they stay home, they quarantine themselves for a time, and they get tested. You do all these things. You do all these things over and over again as much as you can and hope for the best. But shit is going to happen. I applaud that you at least took some effort towards it, care towards it. I've never been to your restaurant. I can't say anything about the particulars. I'm just saying, as a person that runs a restaurant or has run a restaurant to a person that's running it now, I think you did what you had to do.
I tend to agree. I mean, I would say that there's probably lots of restaurants out there that have had positive COVID tests that don't necessarily disclose that to their guests or their customers. Now, it sounds like you didn't really have a choice about that. So it sounds like the employee did that for you or against you. But yeah, you have to make your decision what's right for your people, your employees, and your community. And then it's up to the community to also make the decision, well, I'm not going to go there. And that's up to them if they don't feel comfortable. But I think as a business owner, the only thing you can do is make your employees and your guests feel as comfortable as possible based on the surroundings and the situation.
And we had already gone through this. 2 months ago. We closed, we put a statement out, and it took us 4 hours to do that. And we didn't fire anybody. And, I really wish that people could just not have a short memory.
Yeah.
So, I guess it was Sunday, we had opened up and I came home and I'm super emotional, so I'm sorry. So, I come home and my wife's like, if it was a different kind of person and they were in a different spot, they would probably kill themselves. She's like, I can understand why people would commit suicide for the things that people say. And she's like, it's just not worth it. If we could have just closed. And I was like, I'm so worried about, we're so close to Christmas. And I think we're going to be shut down. And I'm just trying to do my best decision. And I was like, we have so many people that work for us. If we close, we have 100 people that work for us, let's say. Are we going to close down 100 times? We can't be in business. And she was like, you know what? Make that decision when you get to 100 people. She's like, it's just not worth it. She's like, I can't do this business like this. And so when the next case came up, we said, we're going to close. And we're not trying to do anything bad. It's just been really difficult. And like I said, there's no handbook. But, I look at my wife and I just think, we're just selling bacon and eggs. That's all we're doing is just breakfast. My God.
Yeah.
It's tough. I appreciate you speaking to us and being as candid as you are right now. Anybody that's listening, you think what you want about restaurants being open and decisions people being made. But what you're hearing right now is just somebody dealing with an actual situation that's being handed to them. And ask yourself personally, what would you do? Because it's real simple to just say, well, just shut the place down. Okay, well then what does everybody that expects that place to pay their bills do? And so, go ahead.
No, it goes on to more than that. It's just like this platform that people think they have on social media. And I think that what makes it much more of a difficult decision is the things that people say about you, your family, and the decisions you make. And they have this, without probably even knowing you personally, they have this impression and they make this decision and decide to lash out at you without even knowing what your mind is. And so I think it's a lesson really for all of us in this day and age of social media to maybe have some perspective and put yourself in the shoes of a business owner for a second.
Some grace.
Yeah. And have some grace. And it's just because you can say it doesn't necessarily mean you should say it.
I appreciate what you're saying. I've been saying all along, since the weather started getting colder, and some of the studies say that during the colder weather it's more transferable, or that it's going to uptick, and it looks like that's what's the case right now. I was like, wouldn't it just be great if the federal government just said, all right, we're going to shut it down, and here is a financial support system for our restaurants, maybe essential employees or takeout only or whatever you're going to do, but we're shutting down dining 100% and we're going to give everybody a little bit of money. What if they just did it during the holidays? It would have been great for many reasons to just shut the place down. But of course, through transition and elections and all that too, do we know if people are actually going to make any decisions right now? Is there a want for that? And it feels like there isn't. So we're kind of left to our own devices. And so you do what you got to do. And I applaud you for just making your own decisions. And I feel bad for you that you're in a situation that you have to have these decisions being made. But to anybody that just wants to, shout out somebody on a review site or Reddit or whatever, just take a moment for a second. Just take a moment. Please just be respectful of your fellow person in your community, and know that none of these decisions are made with greed or to conspire to do whatever. It's they're just trying to be open. That's it. This is a difficult time.
And there's also just a way, and it's the art of civil discourse, to state your opinion without taking a shot at somebody personally and especially their family, or suggesting some sort of violence or whatever. I mean, that's just above and beyond the call of respectability and just human decency. So
yeah. Well, so what is next right now? I assume that you're in a holding pattern to kind of figure out what's next, but what do you foresee is going to happen to Early Girl, at least at the Wall Street? We're saying Wall Street just so everyone knows that's a street in Asheville, not in New York. But what's going to happen in the upcoming future of Early Girl right now?
Well, since everyone got tested on Sunday, or a large group, I mean, we're tested on Sunday. All the results are coming back Sunday, Monday, today. So the way it looks right now, we're hoping to open tomorrow at 8:00. So we did another deep cleaning. So, Saturday night we did a deep cleaning. Sunday morning before we opened, we did a deep cleaning. Today they're cleaning the restaurant again. And so we're looking to open tomorrow is what we're thinking at 8 a.m. and try it again. Get back at it. You got to pick yourself up.
Right. For the sake of the audience so they know what timeline this is, we're recording on Tuesday the 15th, and we're going to release this on Thursday the 17th. So tomorrow was yesterday, in a sense, Wednesday. But yeah, so all of this is happening all kind of right now in the moment. You ain't the first. You won't be the last of anybody that's dealing with this situation.
Well, and I recognize, we have a lot of people that work for us. This probably isn't the last time.
Yeah. And you have 2 restaurants, so...
No, 3.
Oh, 3, yeah. So, yeah, triple
We're trying to open a 4th next year. I signed a lease. Who does that, So we have a lease that we signed several months ago that hopefully will be in next year. And so... Is
that in Asheville as well? Is that coming up in Asheville?
Yeah. It is. I really, really love Asheville. So I think it's a fantastic town. There's despite the small group of people that are really being jerks, 99% of everybody else here is really amazing. So I love being in the town, and I love the people here. So we have 4 restaurants is what we want, and we're going to try to move into a different town in North Carolina. Hopefully, in 2 years. What is that? 2022. We hope we can go outside of Asheville.
Nice. Well, I will also say, though, the nice part, the beautiful part is that even in your post, you may have received some negative comments on the Yelps and the Google's, reviews, but that seemed more systematic, and there was, 5, 6 of them. When you get a negative review, and every restaurant owner, chef knows that when you get one, it feels like everyone in the world has read that negative review as well, and it's such a stink on your business. But just know, that's just a person's opinion. And even if it's 5 people's opinion or whatever, it's that's just that. And what I saw in your updated post about closing was an outpour of a lot of positivity of people saying, man, I love what you did. Sucks that you're in this situation. You do you. We'll be back. We'll see you soon. And that, I think, is the most important thing, is just community, just huddle around, help them out. Because remember, it's not just the owners. It's everybody that works there. You're thinking about a larger community, and those community members also go support your business as well, whoever you might be. But we all kind of work together. So think about that when you are damning somebody for doing whatever they're doing, especially in these crazy times. So I appreciate you letting us have that conversation with you. I know that is difficult in general. As when you decide to be bold enough to open up a business and employ people, you take on a huge responsibility.
Yeah, Jesson, I really appreciate you coming and being so candid about your business, and we wish you the best of luck. And I will just say, because we have to pay the bills around here, that if you can't get to Early Girl Eatery, or you can't get to your favorite morning coffee place, well, think about getting Boss Coffee.
That's right. Because, Boss, which is a Japanese product, it's flash brewed, available only on Amazon. You can stay home and you can get it delivered to you. Boss Coffee is sold in 3 distinct flavors, both black, vanilla, and cafe au lait. It is flash brewed, which is uniquely a Japanese process, meaning that it is brewed hot and chilled fast, which releases optimal flavors and texture. It really is quite delicious. It's the most popular canned coffee drink in Asia, Australia, and New Zealand, and now it's here, so go check it out. And when you go to buy Boss Coffee, you can get a 10% discount by putting the NCFB podcast promo code when you check out. Aside from that, You can also get something cold, delicious, and a little boozy. I'm talking about Proof Alcohol Ice Cream. Proof Alcohol Ice Cream just released their peppermint flavor, which is unbelievable. It's here at the studio. I don't know how I'm going to get it to you, Jess, just because of mailing ice cream. Not the greatest idea, but I do believe that you have a Lowe's or a Harris Teeter in Asheville, and if you go to their beer and wine section, you'll see a red freezer branded with the Proof Alcohol ice cream there. And there, you can think differently about your dessert. Get your alcohol and your ice cream all in one package. That's Proof Alcohol Ice Cream.
And another place you can get Proof Alcohol ice cream is at our friends, the Triangle Wine Company. So you might go in for wine, you might go in for ice cream, you might go in for beer, you might go in for vermouths or some sort of cocktail mixers, maybe bitters, whatever. They have it all. They're great people. It's a great place, especially to shop during the holidays when you need a variety of gifts for people. And don't forget, when you're there, you can use the NCFB promo code also to receive a nice discount. And also, if you are worried about going into a store, if you live within one of their 4 locations, within, I think it's a 10-mile radius of their location in Southern Pines or Holly Springs or Cary or Morrisville, they will deliver. And also, you can get curbside delivery.
Yeah.
So, trianglewineco.com.
Jesson, thank you so much for being on the show. We look forward to going out there and seeing you in person when we make our next travel visit to Asheville. I'm hoping for the best in 2021. It looks like we might see an end to all of this nonsense soon, and I really hope that all, as we all really hope, that all comes through. So we will see you soon in Asheville in all your glory, and have a delicious huevos rancheros at the crack of dawn when you open. And I appreciate being on the show. Matt, what else you got?
Yeah, that's right. Yesterday was what I like to call the beginning of the end to this mess, as vaccines were starting to be distributed. That was Monday the 14th. But when you do get out to Asheville, and when it's back open, hopefully tomorrow, go to Early Girl Eatery. You will eat and drink very merrily.
Thanks for listening to the NCF&B podcast. And if you've stuck with us this long, review us on iTunes, and remember, 5 stars are encouraged.